All right. We've got so many big stories going on. It seems like all of these Obama appointed and Biden appointed judges are going after Donald Trump. It's not usually Republican judges, which is very curious. To help me go through some of the biggest stories in the news, I have Christina Bobb. Christina, thank you for joining me again.
Thanks so much for having me. I always love being on your show.
Oh, absolutely. I think this is our third show.
Yep.
You always bring some very good information. So, just for my audience, in case they don't know, you are a lawyer, you are an author, you've worked directly with President Trump. You have a new book out, and the president has written the foreword on that.
Yep.
I'm excited to hear about that. You are also now connected and working with Judicial Watch. They do some of the best investigative legal work in Washington, D.C. I want to get your thoughts on this. You personally covered the election fraud that took place in Arizona in 2020. Republicans stonewalled you. Then they've tried to come after you, make your life a living hell. What do you now make of President Trump trying to end mail-in voting, as well as Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard saying in multiple cabinet meetings that they are seeing that our election systems can be corrupted? The FBI knew that, and they've kind of sat on this story. Your thoughts on these big stories?
Yeah, well, thank God. It's about time. I mean, I and a handful of others were reporting that in November of 2020, saying, wait a second, this is a problem. The election wasn't even conducted legally. And then now the fact that they're changing the results 3 or 4 days later, there's a problem with our elections. And we were kind of sounding the alarm, and they came after us, with everything that they had. I'm still a criminal defendant in the state of Arizona for my reporting. My indictment has been thrown out, which I'm really grateful for, but they've left the case open to try to give the prosecutors a chance to figure something else out. But no, they came after us with everything for telling the American people the truth. So I'm so grateful for Tulsi Gabbard that she's doing the work, and she's got her staff and her team doing the work, and that they're pulling this evidence out. And it needs to come out. The American people need to understand exactly what happened, not just in 20. The fraud didn't start in 2020. I mean, that was just the most egregious example of it. But we've had problems in our elections going back probably decades. Mail-in ballots are a huge part of that problem. So I'm grateful for President Trump's efforts to try to end mail-in ballots, and for Director Gabbard's efforts in exposing the problem.
Yeah, my understanding, I don't have direct knowledge, so this is kind of third party, but President Trump is still extremely upset. He wants the truth to come out. He's being stonewalled. I guess Tulsi Gabbard kind of had to go around the CIA and a little bit of the FBI in order to expose the Russiagate information. They're now working on exposing the 2020 stuff. And then all of a sudden, President Trump announces, I'm thinking of signing an executive order to ban mail-in voting. When he met with President Putin in Alaska, Putin casually mentions to him, if you investigate your mail-in ballots, you're going to find a lot of fraud in American elections. So it does seem that this topic is coming up more and more, and I'm grateful to hear that they've dropped that indictment against you. What another story that has just come out is, on the one hand, you've got Fox News and Newsmax and Gateway Pundit and others showing that you've got the head of the Treasury saying President Trump is about to bring in trillions of dollars in new revenue to the United States. According to the Congressional Budget Office, they're going to be able to lower the national debt by about $4 trillion. Now you've got Democrats that are suing President Trump and the White House, saying that a sitting president doesn't have the authority as the chief executive to negotiate on behalf of the country with tariffs. This appeals court is saying that President Trump did something illegal and they're trying to block it. President Trump is saying, hold on, everything is still in place. Of course I have authority. Your thoughts, why are Democrats trying to block him for doing what is obviously beneficial for the country?
Because they don't want him to rack up any wins. I mean, anything that President Trump could do to help America, they're against. They're flat out against safe public cities. They're against parental rights. Everything that makes sense and would help Americans prosper, Democrats want to do the opposite. And so when President Trump has the opportunity with these tariffs to actually bring in a lot of money from outside the US into the US, which will help Americans, American families, American businesses, they're against it because they know it will benefit the American people, and the American people will think fondly of President Trump and his policies. And they just cannot stand the thought that he could have a win.
Wow, that's a really great point. It reminds me of when during my investigative work, I realized that President Biden had purposely and maliciously abandoned U.S. astronauts in space because only Elon Musk could rescue them. And Elon Musk, being associated with Trump, would give Trump a win. So this idea of betraying our country as long as it gets back at Donald Trump is just so disgusting to me. They're doing another thing that maybe you saw on the internet, but on the one hand, the left-leaning media says Donald Trump is trying to separate families at the border. He locked children in cages, even though it was proven that it was Obama that was doing that. Now you've got this left-leaning judge that's blocking President Trump and Tom Homan and DHS and Border Patrol from returning thousands and thousands of trafficked children from Guatemala back to their parents.
Yeah.
The parents are saying, these are our children. We want them back. Now you've got a left-leaning judge saying, no, we're not going to return trafficked children that came up through the cartel for who knows what. We're not going to. This is disgusting. What are your thoughts on that story?
Well, it's terrible what these liberal judges are doing. I mean, they're doing everything they can to throw sand in the gears of what Donald Trump wants and what the people elected him to do. I mean, these policies are not surprising to any American as far as what Donald Trump is doing. This is what he campaigned on. This is what he said he was going to do. We all knew when we voted for him that this is what he was going to do. And so these judges and these leftist activist groups are just trying to throw sand in the gears to make it difficult for him to do what we all elected him to do. So I think, we see these lower district courts throwing sand in the gears of what Trump is doing. They say no. And there's, mixed reviews at the appellate court level. He's had some wins and some losses at the appellate level, but he's winning almost everything at the Supreme Court. And so we've gotten to the point where the lower courts are rendering themselves irrelevant. And that's a dangerous place to be because we don't want every single case to have to go to the United States Supreme Court. Obviously, that's not practical. It's not good for our country. But that's what Democrats are forcing to happen. And so I think the Supreme Court needs to come down harder on some of these lower courts because these lower courts are making obviously erroneous rulings that are politically driven and politically motivated. The Supreme Court needs to set that straight. And Congress can act too. Congress can restrict some of the ability of these courts to do this. They can pass legislation saying what these judges can and can't do, and they're not doing it. And it's a Republican Congress, I'll point out. So Republicans need to grow a spine and do their job. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And think about it. Republicans have the White House, we have the House, we have the Senate, we have the courts, we have a majority of governors, we have a majority of AGs, we have a majority of state houses, a majority of state senates. We got to stop crying about Democrats. It's not Democrats.
The enemy within has now become the GOP.
Yeah.
I mean, this is Tuesday afternoon. Congress is coming back to DC today off of their break. So hopefully we start seeing some movement on some of all of the, I mean, I'm like getting tired of dropping so many bombshell things and then they're not doing anything. And I've given them a little bit of grace because they've been on a break, which is the time.
We were on a break. Sorry, I had to say it.
I remember that. I remember that Friends episode. So you brought up something about Trump, having to take stuff to the Supreme Court. I looked up just this morning, Christina, that in President Biden's 4 years of president, they had to do an emergency docket request 19 times. Since President Trump has been in, they've had to do that 22 times. So in 8 months, they've had to go for an emergency ruling more times than Biden in his entire 4 years.
Yeah.
Is this the continuation of lawfare with the
Yes.
Democrat Party?
Yes. And I think we're seeing it more and more on the civil side. We've seen it both, right? We've seen abuses of the civil justice, we've seen abuses of the criminal justice system. It's kind of been spread out everywhere. Now that Donald Trump is in control of the federal criminal system, the Department of Justice, they can't use that avenue. That avenue has been closed to them. And so now they've had to shift everything into the civil arena, because it's the only place where they have access to try to stop what he's doing. And so, yeah, I think that's their biggest weapon that they have right now, that and the media. And so I think that's what they're using, and they're just bringing as many cases as they possibly can in front of leftist, politically driven, partisan judges that they know these rulings are going to get overturned. They're just hoping that if they can do enough of them, the Supreme Court won't be able to take all of them, and then President Trump won't be able to get through all of his policies. So President Trump is undoing the work of the bureaucracy at an alarming rate. And the more they come after him, the quicker it's unraveling. And so they're doing what they can to try to stop it. I don't think they'll be successful, but that's the debate right now, right? Is Donald Trump going to successfully rid the corruption out of our justice system? He's on track to do that. I think it looks good, but they're doing everything they can to stop him.
Yeah. Yeah, they really are. Let me pull this up. This is just news out this morning, so I don't have a lot of knowledge on it, and I'm sure you won't either. So I don't want to catch you off guard. But
okay,
breaking news: big Trump win. D.C. Circuit Court ruled 2-1. President Trump can axe $16 billion in climate grants awarded to 15 nonprofits by Joe Biden. The court even said Obama Judge Chutkan, she did the J6, she did a few others.
Tanya
she
Chutkan,
openly admitted to hating Donald Trump and donating money to Democrats, that she abused her discretion by blocking Trump from cutting their funding earlier. So this higher court has now had to rule that this DC judge abused Donald Trump and his authority to get this done. I mean, it's just sad that, they don't have any good policies to run on. Their last weapon is to release Norm Eisen and others that just try to hamstring him every single day in the court system. Now, going back to the ruling against him, saying that he broke the law and illegally was negotiating on behalf of the country for these tariffs, do you believe that will end up at the Supreme Court as well?
Yeah, I think it will, and I think it will be overturned. I mean, he's the president of the United States. If he's not able to act and exchange with foreign countries, then who can? And I know their argument is like, oh, Congress should be doing it because it's a tax or a tariff. Yeah, I mean, the Constitution doesn't expressly prohibit the president from doing that. And I think President Trump is well within his rights. Every other president has done it. So,
if you've been living on credit cards just to cover groceries, gas, and bills, you know those interest rates are brutal. Why keep paying 20% or more to banks when you could call my friends at American Financing? They have mortgage rates in the 5s, and they are showing people every day how to keep more of their hard-earned money and keep it out of the hands of credit card companies. Right now, American Financing is helping homeowners save on average $800 a month by using their home equity to wipe out high interest debt. With no upfront fee and no obligation, and just a 10-minute call to a salary-based mortgage consultant. And here's the kicker: if you start today, you could save 2 mortgage payments, putting even more cash in your hands right now. Don't wait. Call American Financing now at 888-686-8030. That's 888-686-8030, or visit americanfinancing.net/Gardner.
yeah, I think that'll be overturned.
Yeah, what's interesting to me is he ends up going to the Supreme Court on dismantling and taking back money from the Department of Education. They say he had the authority to do that. When it came to firing people on the Product Safety Commission Board. They said he had authority to do that. When it came to cutting $800 million from NIH to proven DEI and transgender research, they said he had authority on that. When it came to using the Alien Enemies Act, they said he had authority on that. Cutting teacher grants, authority on that. Opting out of LGBTQ education in the school system, he had authority on that. And then they had to come down and squash these nationwide injunctions, hundreds of injunctions from lower courts, and they said he had authority on that. So again, is this just them trying to hamstring him every single day?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I mean, you just gave a great summary to demonstrate that he's winning. He's winning at the Supreme Court. He's winning where it matters, but they're dragging this nation through so much unneeded pain and strife for no reason. It's not going to amount to anything other than to slow down what Donald Trump is trying to do, which doesn't help them. I think Americans are wising up to what's going on, and they're all sick of it. Democrats are not getting more popular as this goes on. So, yeah, I mean, we just got to fight our way through it.
Yeah, it's like the Trump train has all this momentum, and instead of having good ideas or good people to run, they're just like throwing sticks on the train tracks, like trying to slow down the Trump train. But gratefully, this is a man who does not slow down. He does not have any fear when it comes to going up against this stuff. And I also like that he respects the law. Like he goes, man, that's disappointing. We'll go to the next court. He's not, trying to overrule or do anything like that. So he does believe in the rule of law, but he can also tell when the law is being used against him. Now, you're working with Judicial Watch. I follow them. Tom Fitton. They're doing FOIAs on everything from Epstein to lawfare abuse, Letitia James. Are there any big projects that you guys are working on right now that MAGA would be curious about?
Yeah, we're trying to get access to all of it. Anything that you have seen in the news, we've got it. Recently, I got a production back on Tim Walz's ties to the CCP from the Department of Homeland Security. They had a whole email chain. You can go to our website, judicialwatch.org, and get those documents. But the Department of Homeland Security was watching Tim Walz as someone that China was pushing and hoping to get to Washington, D.C. We've got stuff with the Department of Justice with Mark Milley and Merrick Garland. And I mean, anything that's been in the news in the last 5 years, we're tracking it down.
Oh, man. I would love to see something against Merrick Garland or Alejandro Mayorkas. Those guys really screwed up the country big time.
Yes, they did.
You mentioned Tim Walz. I don't know if you saw this or not, but this morning he admitted that after these horrible shootings of Catholic children in Minnesota, President Trump called him. They had a very calm and a very respectful conversation. Mm-hmm. He then went to a rally and was joking about that he was really sad to hear that Trump hadn't died. These rumors that were going around, 150,000 posts on Twitter about this. And he was saying, but don't worry, folks, that good news is coming one day, and just like openly joking and mocking that Trump will die. This Trump derangement syndrome is really sick. Do you believe it's a mental illness at this point?
It probably is. It's probably diagnosable, but it also, I think, stems from a lack of morals. When the left is so unabashedly thrown off morals, saying anybody can believe their truth, anything you want is good, anything that excites you is good, and who cares what other people think? This is the end result. You get a society that doesn't care about people. They act inhumane towards people they dislike. It's really ugly and disgusting. So yes, that seems to be the Democrats' policy, but I think it comes from an intentional abandonment of morals.
Yeah. I think it's one thing for President Trump to say, hey, I'm concerned that Joe Biden isn't mentally there, and I'm a former president, and I know the pressure of being a president 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, versus saying, I wish Joe Biden would die. I wish he would have a stroke and we would get Kamala Harris. Like, it's just so disgusting to me.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to ask you about this. One of my questions for you is about Mar-a-Lago. and the raid, this
Yeah.
approved armed raid. We've got John Bolton in the news. They're saying it's okay to go after Trump, but it's not okay to go after John Bolton. Tell me about your book, Defiant: Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare.
Yes, I'm really excited for it. So I was President Trump's custodian of records for Mar-a-Lago, for the Mar-a-Lago case. I was there on site during the raid. I met with the defense team as well as the Department of Justice and FBI a few months prior to. So the book's got all the emails, text messages, exchanges, everything you want to know about how it went down and the lack of probable cause that they had to do this. President Trump did the foreword for the book, so there's a note from him in there as well. So I'm excited for folks to finally get to see the truth. I'm sure you'll be shocked to know that the story the media has told everybody is not the whole truth. But what stands out to me between the difference between Mar-a-Lago and the John Bolton raid is, for Mar-a-Lago, the FBI and the Department of Justice did not come out and announce it. They did not take ownership of it. They basically did it in secret until the raid was over. And then Donald Trump was the one who put out on Truth Social that Mar-a-Lago was being raided. It was Donald Trump who let the world know what was going on, not the Department of Justice, not the FBI. And then shortly after that, you have the Biden administration going, oh my gosh, how did Mar-a-Lago get raided? We have no idea. What a mystery. We didn't know. I don't know if you remember that, but they completely denied even knowing about the raid. They tried to pawn it off on the FBI agents that were like, oh, these were rogue agents. No, they weren't. Finally, 3 days later, Merrick Garland held a press conference and said, yeah, I authorized it. I knew it was going to happen. And that was the extent of the press briefing. Well, with John Bolton, it's different. The morning of the raid, Kash Patel put out on social media, no one is above the law. The FBI issued a statement saying, we did the necessary paperwork. We've got probable cause. We've got a search warrant. We're executing it as we speak, which tells me that they are on solid ground. They're on solid footing. They have probable cause. They're confident in their probable cause. They know it's going to be scrutinized. Everybody knows that every part about this is going to be scrutinized. And so the fact that they're taking ownership of it so early, to me, is a really good sign, because Christopher Wray's FBI didn't do that. We didn't even see Christopher Wray hid from it. He never even talked about it at the time. So I think they knew they didn't have probable cause. They knew they were wrong for the raid in the first place. Yes, they went to a judge and got a warrant, but they had to go to a judge who was conflicted out, who weeks prior had said he wasn't capable of being impartial and fairly judging Donald Trump in the Trump-Clinton case. So he recused himself. And then that's the judge they go to with an affidavit that they lied about. They didn't even give all the information about how cooperative the president had been. And they lied about their probable cause. So they're not the same.
Yeah. Did you ever figure out, maybe this is in your book, but did you ever figure out, why did the FBI need to go through Melania Trump's underwear drawer? Like, did they really believe there were hidden Russiagate files there, or that Trump was selling nuclear technology to Iran so that he could make a couple $100,000 as a billionaire? Like, did we ever figure out why they needed to go through her underwear drawer?
I do not know. The only thing I can think of is that it's a power trip, and they are so drunk on power that they wanted to just invade privacy in the most intimate places that they could and just say, hey, we can do this. That it was just a really gross abuse of power. I mean, I don't know, but that's what that was. There was no reason for them to do that. That wasn't necessary, other than an ego trip and them being drunk on their own self-importance.
Yeah, it did. That's a good point, where it's like, hey, we have the power to go through your wife's underwear drawer. Like, you're powerless. It's such a weird thing. And then, then it comes out later that the photos of classified documents strewn all over Mar-a-Lago was literally a fake, crafted, bogus photo in order to humiliate the former president. Just absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
So how did it come about getting President Trump to do the foreword? Is it just because of your connection to legal representation, or the fact that you fought so hard to clear his name in the 2020 fake election, or all of it?
Yeah, probably all of the above. I needed his permission to publish the book in the first place, because I was working as an attorney for him. I was a staff attorney for him. And so all of that stuff is his information. All of the information I have would be privileged. And so I needed his permission to publish it because it's privileged information that wasn't publicly available. And so when I met with him to ask if I could publish it, we just had a good conversation, kind of reminiscing, talking about it. And I asked him, I was like, "Sir, would you do the forward? It's your story too." Because I really am telling his story, but from kind of like from the sidelines, not even the sidelines. I got, brutally attacked as well, just not to the degree that he did. But it just it came up in conversation, and I hoped he'd say yes, and he did. And I'm so grateful.
Oh man, that's amazing. Well, I know you are a very busy person as a lawyer. I appreciate all that you do. Judicial Watch is doing a lot of great work. So when I heard that you were over there on their team, that made me really excited because they have exposed so many stories, and I look forward to them exposing even more. I'm going to put a direct link to the book. Pre-order, people can go check it out. I'm going to put a direct link. But if people want to follow you online, where can I also point them?
Yep, my social media is Christina_Bobb, BOBB, and Christina Bobb on Truth. Or you can go to my website, ChristinaBobb.com.
Okay, I will put all of those down below. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You as well.